The nation woke up to two words that changed everything. Petition denied. That's it. No explanation. No hearing, no debate. It's just two words from the Supreme Court that obliterated years of legal strategy in an instant. But before we break down what happens next, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This story is moving fast, and you don't want to miss what's coming. Trust me, what unfolds in the next few weeks will be unlike anything we've seen in American history. Now, let's talk about what just happened. For years, the former president had one strategy: delay, 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 stall every case, appeal every ruling, turn the calendar itself into a weapon. If you can push things far enough into the future, maybe consequences never arrive. That strategy just died. The Supreme Court didn't just reject his appeal, they refused to even consider it. No hearing, no oral arguments, no procedural buffer. The moment they issued their ruling, every stalled case roared back to life. Prosecutors can move forward, judges can set trial dates, investigators have a clear path. The legal machinery that had been frozen for months suddenly surged ahead at full speed. And the former president, sources say he woke up thinking he had months, maybe another year. By nightfall, he realized the final shield between him and accountability had been obliterated. Inside his inner circle, the atmosphere is described as apocalyptic. The legal team that once promised endless lifelines now has nothing left to file, no motion to request, no delay to deploy. The road ends here. What shocked legal analysts wasn't just the rejection, it was the speed and the message. The Supreme Court, including justices he personally appointed, refused to entertain the argument that a former president deserves blanket immunity from criminal prosecution. They affirmed what the appeals court had already made clear: once you leave office, you're a citizen. And citizens face consequences. The shock hit especially hard because he'd viewed the Supreme Court as his final sanctuary. He'd appointed 3 of the justices. Surely they'd protect him, right? Wrong. Reports from his residence describe visible shaking, heated arguments, and repeated questions: why would they abandon me? As if he was owed personal protection. Just for blue states, as if the court existed to serve him rather than the Constitution. The court chose institutional integrity over political loyalty. And that choice struck harder than any election loss or courtroom defeat ever could. This ruling doesn't just accelerate the criminal process, it detonates everything. Asterisk the political operation. How do you fundraise for an appeal that no longer exists? His campaign raised staggering sums by promising supporters the courts would save him. That promise just evaporated. Major financiers are quietly stepping back, recognizing this battle is effectively unwinnable. The financial crisis. Without appellate delays, legal bills will crash down all at once. The campaign already carries heavy debt. Now they face costs they can't spin away, postpone, or blame on rivals. Criminal trials are extraordinarily expensive. Investigators, expert witnesses, research consultants. The burn rate just went into overdrive. The political fallout for months. Allied lawmakers dodged questions with the same line: we must let the appeals process play out. That process just played out. Fully, finally, irrevocably. Now, every senator and representative faces an unavoidable question: do you stand with the justice system or with someone formally headed to criminal trial? Reporters describe lawmakers literally avoiding eye contact in Capitol hallways. They know the crossroads has arrived. The case returns to the federal judge who's been waiting for this moment. She's known for efficiency and discipline. With the appellate freeze lifted, she can immediately set new timelines. Experts predict a scheduling hearing within days. The trial date that was suspended during the appeal will return to the calendar, likely landing in the heart of election season. Think about that imagery. A national candidate sitting silently at a defense table while prosecutors outline attempts to overturn an election, not giving speeches, not holding rallies, sitting in a courtroom facing criminal charges. Politically devastating doesn't begin to cover it, but it gets worse for the defense. The ruling also strips away the last shield, preventing key witnesses from testifying. Claims of executive privilege can no longer block former aides from recounting conversations and decisions made behind closed doors. People who operated at the highest levels of government, chiefs of staff, vice officials, insiders who know everything, can now be compelled to speak under oath. And with their own legal futures on the line, their incentive is crystal clear: tell the truth. Truth is exactly what he fears most. Staff around him report something they've never seen before: visible unraveling. Pacing for hours, staring at documents without reading them, as if willing them to change. Sudden shifts in behavior, bursts of anger followed by quiet despair. He spent a lifetime believing he can negotiate his way out of anything. Lawsuits, bankruptcies, scandals. There was always a settlement to reach, a deal to cut, a court to appeal to. This time, there's no exit, no bargain, no escape route. The realization is setting in, and it's breaking him. When this trial begins, prosecutors will present what analysts describe as an exceptionally strong case. It's not political interpretation, not hearsay. Thousands of documents, recordings, communications, and sworn statements. The defense's central argument that a former president can't be prosecuted for official actions is dead. With that shield gone, they have no coherent strategy left. The timeline will be relentless. Once jury selection begins, media scrutiny will intensify on every detail, every witness. Supporters who believed he was protected by his status will see him judged like any other citizen, and he'll face that judgment in Washington, D.C., the very city where his alleged crimes took place, the city where he captured only a tiny fraction of the vote. He fought desperately to move the trial elsewhere, but with the appeal denied, the venue is locked. He'll face a jury drawn from the place whose democratic process he allegedly tried to overturn. The symbolism is impossible to ignore. Security officials are issuing warnings. A cornered figure with nothing left to lose rarely retreats quietly. So advisors describe increasingly volatile outbursts online, attacks on judges, prosecutors, investigators, rhetoric designed to provoke anger and potentially encourage unrest among his most loyal supporters. Federal marshals are preparing. Protective details are being reinforced. No one is underestimating the risk that incendiary rhetoric could ignite chaos. The system understands the psychology of someone whose power is slipping. A wounded political figure, especially one addicted to adoration, becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability is what law enforcement fears most. The charges carry potential sentences that could reach decades. Conspiracy against the government, obstruction of an official proceeding. These aren't misdemeanors with probation options. Judges weigh several factors when sentencing: the seriousness of the offense, absence of remorse, and repeated public attacks on the justice system. Taken together, these factors typically point toward substantial prison time. That's why federal agents and protective services have already begun discussing the unthinkable: how to guard a former head of state inside a federal penitentiary. That conversation alone reveals how far this has progressed. This changes everything in the 2024 race, every polling model, every donor calculation, every political strategy meeting. Who would volunteer to stand beside a candidate who might be sentenced before Election Day? The silence from other candidates in his party has grown deafening. Their campaigns were built on careful avoidance, buying time while waiting for the courts. That time is gone. Advisors are quietly discussing whether the party should nominate someone else if he spends the general election at a defense table. The possibility of a fractured convention is rising. Delegates could revolt. Factions could split. Chaos could erupt on the floor. Imagine the campaign slogan, "Choose the person who won't end up behind bars." Harsh, but effective. The world is watching closely. Foreign ministries are alerting their governments that the United States is entering an unprecedented season of internal legal conflict. Allies and adversaries recognize that America has just shown it will hold even former leaders accountable. The message is clear. The rule of law endures, even at the highest levels. But it also signals instability. A major candidate for national leadership is enmeshed in a criminal case that could stretch for months, overshadowing diplomacy and undermining the country's image abroad. The outcome could reshape global power dynamics. For years, the narrative was invincibility, the myth of untouchability, the idea that rules apply to everyone else but not to him. That myth just evaporated. In any political movement built on the image of a strong man, the moment that mystique disappears, support begins to crumble. Credibility is currency. And once that currency collapses, everything falls apart. Even commentators who preached about a deep state conspiracy are struggling to keep their narrative alive. For years, they claimed every investigation was rigged. That argument collapses when the very court they once praised, dominated by conservative judges, rejects his final defense. If the system were truly rigged, why would justices appointed by conservative administrations refuse to grant immunity? The conspiracy unravels under its own contradictions. Perhaps the most unexpected outcome, this ruling revitalizes public confidence in the judiciary. The Supreme Court has faced years of criticism and distrust. Had they granted immunity or delayed the case, it would have reinforced the perception that powerful individuals play by different rules. By refusing to intervene, the court signaled that its loyalty lies with the Constitution, not with any political figure. The institution protected itself, preserved its legitimacy, and may have restored a measure of trust among citizens who feared the judicial system had been corrupted. The final avenue of escape has closed. The former president stands exposed, without delay, without protection, without excuses. The shield he relied on for decades has shattered. Now the evidence will be presented, witnesses will come forward, the trial will move forward without obstruction. The system has finally caught up to the man who believed he could outrun it forever. In the weeks ahead, there will be noise, outrage, and chaos. But beneath it all, one fact remains unshakable. The law applies to everyone. For the first time in modern American history, that truth is being tested at the highest level. A former president facing criminal charges with no appeals left, no delays remaining, and no special treatment granted. 2 words from the Supreme Court. But to see, petition denied. Just rewrote the rules of American politics. The question now isn't whether there will be a trial, it's what happens when the verdict comes down. And that answer? We're all about to find out together. Asterisk, stay tuned. Subscribe and buckle up because this story is just getting started.